Hello and welcome to the video by Trump Excel. I'm Sumit Bansal and this is the third and final video of the series creating a KPI dashboard in Excel. In the first video, we learned how to create this dynamic scatter chart where you have these two drop downs for each axis. This is for the x-axis, and as soon as you change the KPI selection from this drop down, this entire chart would update. Similarly, you have another drop down for the y-axis where you can select the relevant KPI. In the second video, we learned how to create this drop down such that when you select a company from this drop down, it would get highlighted on the chart, and at the same time you would also get a dynamic interpretation of the selected company from this scatter chart here in words in this box. In this case, for example, we have selected company 1 and you can see that it says company 1 outperforms in KPI 4, however it lags its peers in KPI 1. And you can see that when I change this company name, this dynamic interpretation automatically updates. Now, when you have created this scatter chart and when you have deep dived into these companies and you have identified a quadrant, the next question is to get a list of these companies within the quadrant. So for example, if I'm targeting on the bottom left quadrant and these look like prospects, good prospects or good companies to target, then I would want a list of these companies. So in this video, I would show you how to extract this list of companies for each quadrant and how to create a bullet chart that would show you a comparison of the selected company with the peer average. So let me get started first by showing you how to extract the list of companies from the quadrant, and for that we would need two things. First would be a scroll bar here so that I don't have to show you the entire list of companies. I can just show you 10 companies and then you can use the scroll bar, and I would need the radio button so that you can select one of these quadrants. So let me first show you how to insert the scroll bar. Go to the developer tab and here go to insert, and within insert select this option which says scroll bar within form controls, and when you click on the worksheet anywhere, it would insert this scroll bar. Right click on the scroll bar, go to format control, and in the format control dialog box change these values. The current value would be 1, the minimum value would be 1, the maximum value in this case is 91 because I have a total of 100 records and I'm showing 10 records at a time. So when the last value is 91, I would have the records 91 to 100 displayed here. Incremental change is the change that happens when I click on these tips, that is 1, and page change is the change when I click anywhere except the tips, which is somewhere here. I also need to give a cell link to this scroll bar, so I would go to calculations tab and select this cell which is B10. Now see what happens when I change this scroll bar. I click on the tips, this value changes here dynamically. Along with the scroll bar, I would also need the option buttons. To insert those option buttons, again go to the developer tab and in insert select this option button icon, and now when you click anywhere on the worksheet, it would insert an option button. This is the default text which would be option button 1, option button 2, and we can change this text. So let me make it all. This would be the button where when I click on it, I would want the entire list of companies, and I would have to duplicate this checkbox. So I would simply press Control D. So I would click it and press Control D, and I would do that 3 more times so that I have now in total 5 buttons. I can simply align these buttons here, and I would rename these. So this would be all, this would be top left quadrant, this would be top right quadrant, this would be bottom left, and this would become bottom right. You can resize this as an object, and you can also align these using the alignment options, but let me not focus on the formatting here a lot. I would rather focus on showing you how to use these. Now I would right click here and go to format control, and I would again configure this checkbox here. So what I would do is I would go to checked options, which means that whenever I open this workbook, this option is always checked, and I would assign a cell link to it, and this would be the cell link here, which is B11. Now see what happens. As of now I've selected all here, and the radio button value here says 1, but when I select top left, the value here becomes 2. When I select top right, it becomes 3, and similarly when I select top left or top right, it becomes 4 or 5. Now since all these radio buttons are linked to one single cell, I would use that cell value to extract the list of companies based on what I have selected here. So to do that, I would go back to calculations worksheet, and here I already have the format in place, and I would use this area to extract the list of companies. But let me first hide these columns, because then I would have the calculation columns adjacent to the company name. Now the first thing that I need to do here is I need to identify the quadrant for each company. So in this case I have x-axis value and y-axis value, and using this I would then extract the quadrant number. In this case my quadrant numbers would be 1 for all, 2 for top left, 3 for top right, 4 for bottom left, and 5 for bottom right. So which means that the quadrant number here would be from 2 to 5 instead of 1 to 4. So to get the quadrant number, I would use a simple if condition, and the condition is if x-axis value is greater than 0.5 or 50%, then I would again use an if condition if y-axis value is greater than 0.5. Then I would want to get the quadrant here would be the top right quadrant, which would be quadrant number 3 here. But if this is false, which means that if x-axis is more than 50% but y-axis is not, then this is bottom right quadrant, which is number 5. Now I would again use the if condition to see when x-axis is less than 50%. I would again check for y-axis value here, and I would check if this is more than 50%, then it would be the second quadrant, which is top left quadrant, else it would be the fourth quadrant. And now when I hit enter, it gives me quadrant number 5 here, and I can cross check. I can go back to the dashboard, and here if I select say company 1, I can see this is the bottom right quadrant, which is number 5 of the radio buttons. Now I can simply drag this down, and I can quickly cross check again. So say if I check this for company 7, I would check this for company 7, and yes, fair enough, it is again number 5 here. Now I have the quadrant number here based on the x-axis value and y-axis value. Now I need to check whether the selected quadrant matches this number. So I would again simply use an if condition, and I would say if this number here is equal to, and let me lock this because I would be dragging this down, but I don't want this to change. If this is equal to 1, which means that if the person or the user has selected all in the radio buttons, then I would anyway want this to return true. But if this is not the case, then I would check for a condition. If this value F4 is equal to this value, and if that is the case, then I would want this to return true, else I want this to return false. And now when I hit enter and double click on it, you can see that I have true wherever there is 5, but in all the other places I have false here. I can go back and check this again. If I select all, you would see that everything becomes true, because now this would give me the list of entire all the companies in this calculation. Now what I need to do is I need to simply check if this value is true, then I would want to have the row number here. So I can simply use rows formula, and I would lock the first cell reference so that when it goes down it would become 2, 3 and so on. But if this is false, then I want to return a blank. And now when I double click, you would see that I only have row numbers wherever there is a true. Now I need to stack up all these numbers, so I would use the small formula, and I would select this entire array, press F4 to lock it, and then again rows formula, so that I get the first smallest number and the second smallest number and so on. So this is 1 as of now. When I go down, this would become 2, 3 and so on. So now I can simply double click here and it'll give me all these numbers, but it also give me these errors. So what I can do is I can simply use if error formula. If there is an error, then I want blank. And now when I double click here and go down, the error part is gone. Now I need to get the name of the companies using this number, and it is very simple by using an index formula. Here this becomes my array. I would press F4 and this is my row number, and now when I hit enter it gives me company 1. Again I can double click. Again the same problem, I would have a couple of value errors, so to avoid it I would use if error and here blank. Now I need to extract the KPI values for each of these companies, and to do that I would again use the index formula, and here I would use the named range that I had created. So in case of array I would use KPI data, and if you would remember I had created an array based on the entire data set. I created an array called created a named range called KPI data. So I would be using this named range. This becomes my array, and now I would match this company name and find out the row number and then extract the value for the KPI. So to do that I would use the lookup value. So this is my lookup value. My lookup array would be company data, and here I have the company column, and I'm looking for an exact match, and I want to extract the data from the second column because first column has company names and second column has the KPI1 data. And now when I hit enter it gives me 27, and I can simply double click on it. I also need to use an if error formula, so I would wrap this entire formula with an if error so that it doesn't give me any error values in below where we do not have the company names. Now all we need to do is simply copy paste the same formula in these cells but change the column number. So instead of 2 it would be 3, here instead of 2 it would be 4, and here it would be 5. So now I have these company based on the quadrant that I have selected. So for example here if I select say all, I can go back and see it gives me the list of all the companies because I've selected all here. But if I select say only top left, which is this quadrant, I would have all the companies from the top left quadrant, and you can cross check and see that in top left KPI, the values here would be company 5, and you can check that company 5 x-axis value is less than 50% but y-axis is more than 50%. So this is giving us the right result. Now what we need to do is take this list and put it here, and we can only show 10 records at a time. So what I would do here is I would have the serial number, I can have the company name, or maybe let me just type name here so that I don't have to resize these. Then I can have KPI 1, KPI 2, 3 and 4. Let me also change the font to maybe 9 here. Now the serial number could be very simple. I can have rows formula here. So now as of now it gives me 1. I would subtract 1 from this, and then I would add the scroll bar value from here. So what it does is it would give me 11 here, but if I go to the top you can see it gives me 1, and I can drag this down for, oops, I need to lock this value for the scroll bar, and now when I drag this down it gives me 10, and you can see that I can when I use the scroll bar it would go up till 100. To get the name of the company, and that too from this list here, I would simply use an index formula. I would select this entire array, press F4 to lock it, and then I would use the rows formula, lock the first reference so that when it goes down it becomes 2, 3 and so on. And again I would use the same trick I have used here for the scroll bar. I would subtract 1 and then I would add the scroll bar value here, which is this value, and press F4 to lock it. And I also need to specify the column number here. So the column number here, since its name, it would be 1, or I can simply use columns formula here and lock the first reference, which is H5. Now I have the right result here. I can simply drag this down and you can cross check it's company 5, 11, 21 and so on, which is the right result. Now if I change this to all companies, it gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I can use the scroll bar. If I select something like top right, it would give me 2, 4, 8, which is again the right result. And I can simply use the same formula, and I can maybe even drag this to the right and down. And I can convert this into percentage without any decimal. So here what I've done is I've extracted a list of companies based on the selection at the top, based on the quadrant selection. So in this case, let me select, say, bottom right, and you can see we have company 7 here, which is this company that has been highlighted. What we can also do here is we can use a heat map to show these values. So what I would do is I would go to formulas, I would go to home, and within conditional formatting I can apply a heat map. You can apply any heat map you think would be good. In this case what happens is all the values that are more than 50% gets are more than 66.6% gets the green color, the values less than 33% gets the red color, and in between gets the yellow color. So this is how you can extract a list of companies based on these radio button selection. Now the next step is to create a bullet chart here at the bottom that would update based on the selection that we make here. So to make the bullet chart, I already have the data here in place. What I would do here is I would have to specify the range. Oops. And what I'm doing here is I'm specifying that if the value is, say, 50%, in 0 to 50%, then it is low. If the value is from, say, 0 to from 50 to 80%, then it is medium, and if it is 80 to 100%, then it is high. Now this is the construct of a bullet chart, because what happens is it also shows you different qualitative bands, and these are the bands that we have created. If the performance is between 0 to 50%, then it's low. From 50 to 80%, it's medium, and from 80 to 100%, it's high. And you need to make sure that the sum of these values is equal to 100. Now we need to get the name of the company that we have selected in the dashboard. So to do that, I would press equal to here, go to the dashboard and select this cell here, which is cell F9. And now you can see that I've selected the company here, which is, say, company 1 or company 2, and as soon as I go back here, that name is reflected. Now I would need to extract the KPI values for this selected company. So to do that, I would use VLOOKUP, and this is my lookup value, and my table array would be KPI data, and I need this value from the second column, because the first column has the name of the companies, the second column has KPI 1, and the third has KPI 2, and so on. And I need an exact match, so I would use 0. And now when I hit enter, this gives me the result. I can simply copy paste this. Let me lock this cell, and I can simply copy paste it here, but I need to change. Let me lock this cell. Now let me copy paste it into other cells, and I would need to change the column number. So this would be 3, this would be 4. You can also make this column number dynamic as well by using the columns formula. And then finally I want to have the peer average value here. So the peer average value could simply be calculated by using the average of KPI data, and here I would use KPI 1. So this would give me the average value of all the KPIs, and I can simply copy it to the right. So it would give me, I would use it for KPI 2, this would be for KPI 3, and this would be for KPI 4. Now when I have all these values and all the data in place, I would then use this to create a bullet chart. So let me first show you how to create a bullet chart here, and then we can copy paste it in the main dashboard. So to create a bullet chart, I would simply select these cells, the first KPI values and these headers, and I would go to insert, and within insert I would go to stacked column chart. And when I do that, you can see that as of now I have this chart where all these values are plotted as various series, different series, but I don't want that. I want it as a single series. So to do that, I would simply select the chart, go to design, and then go to switch row column. And here I have this single bar and a multicolored bar here. So what I would do is I would have to change the chart type for a couple of data points. So for that, I would right click, go to change series chart type, and here for these two values, which is the company name and peer average, I would put it on secondary axis. And I would also change the peer average chart type to stacked line with markers, and see what happens when I click OK. I have this entire thing, I have this yellow bar, and I have the peer average here. What I need to do is I also need to remove this secondary axis so that all my data points would then use the primary axis only. Otherwise you can see these problems can arise here. This is 120 and it's 100. So now let me delete it. The second thing I need to do here is I need to change the width of this company data point so that you would be able to see the target value, the company data point, as well as these low, medium, high bands. So to do that, I would right click, go to format data series, and here I would increase the gap width to maybe something like this much. Another thing that I need to do is, as of now the peer average value looks like a dot here, but I need to change this into a bar. So I would right click, go to format data series, and here I would go to marker, and in marker options within built-in I would select this dash. I would increase the size to maybe say 14, and I would change the color to red. I would also have to change the color of these remaining bars. So let me make this company value as a gray bar, something like this. Here I can change this to maybe different shades of blue. So dark one, then lighter one, and then the lightest one, so that you can see that these are different. There is a gradient and these represent different values. The lowest one is low, then medium, then high, and then we have this this gray color bar as well. Now to extend this same bullet chart for all the other KPIs, simply go to this series, it's selected by this blue line, and drag it for all the KPIs. And as soon as you do this, you can see that now the bullet chart is made for all the KPIs. We can remove this line here by simply checking outline to no outline, and then there are some level of formatting that you can do. Maybe increase the size of this marker. So I can do this by marker options, maybe make it 16 or 17, and change this formatting, maybe give it a solid border which is say white in color, and increase this to maybe 1.25 so that it looks a bit better. But what we have done here is we have created a bullet chart where these values for this company are dynamic. So let's see what happens when I change the company. Let me first take this chart here on the main dashboard. I can resize it, align it, and all the formatting things that you can do, but let's see what happens when you select the company. Here if I change the company to say company 6, instantly this chart would update, and I can simply see that in this bullet chart company 6 outperforms its peers in KPI 2, 3, and 4, but it underperforms its peers in KPI 1. And this is exactly what is here written in this box as well. Let me change this to 100, which means 1, so that the chart looks a bit better here. And we can also do a bit of formatting, maybe change the font of all these numbers and all these text values. And we can also make this chart title dynamic the same way we made it for the scatter chart. But what we have done here is, in essence, we have created a dashboard where you started with a list of 100 accounts, and those 100 accounts were quickly plotted on this scatter chart where you could immediately get a segmentation based on the selected KPI. So for example, if this is the chart and you're focusing on the bottom left quadrant because these are the companies that are lagging in both the KPIs, and you want to focus these, maybe these are good prospects, good customers, then you can get a list of all these accounts immediately by just clicking on the button. So as soon as you click on a button here, it would immediately give you the list of all the accounts. And then when you have an account in mind, say for example you have this account, company number 72, in mind, then you can quickly go and select this company from this drop down, and instantly you would see where this company is in the chart and how is this company performing as compared to its peers based on this bullet chart. So this is how you can create an entire business KPI dashboard in Excel. I hope you found this video useful. Thank you and have a nice day.